Hello, listener. Welcome to a rather exciting episode of
Honourable Mentions.
We have got a real special episode today, which we'll explain more a bit later. But before we can do anything else, I best check whether the other one is here. Hello, Neil.
Sup, bro?
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Are you excited for today's episode?
Oh, I'm edge of my seat.
Today, listener, we've not just got Hello, Neil. We've got an extra special guest joining us straight live by the miracle of satellite from the United States. It's our friend and soon to be yours, Rafal. Hi, Rafal.
How are you doing, Steve? How are you doing, Neil? Thank you for having me on this podcast.
No, that's absolute pleasure. It really is. It's very exciting for us.
It is a pleasure.
We don't normally get to talk to real people, just each other.
No, that's bad.
It's very nice to have you here. So would you like to inform our listener, because we only have the one, Rafal, whereabouts you are as we speak?
Actually, I'm currently right now on a little peninsula called Cape Cod, where we're getting a snowstorm. But originally I am Polish, so Europe has a special place in my heart. I came here when I was 10 years old, so I'm dating myself. That was 36 years ago. And And I've been here ever since. I made a few trips to Europe. It's not that I abandoned Europe.
That's why it's called Cape Cod. Is it named after the fish?
Yes, that is correct. Cod is very, very prevalent in this area, and we use that for our fish and chips. We use cod.
It's a famous place, Cape Cod. Why have I heard of Cape Cod?
You're thinking about the chip shop.
Well, it became popular during the Kennedy's era because they have a house here. They have a compound. It's like Hyannisport, which is near here. I mean, near the studio, and they kind of made it famous. And now it's the destination during the summertime. And 4 years ago, during the pandemic, during COVID, everyone wanted to get away to the beach. So this is a perfect spot because we have Bayside on the left side and ocean on the right side.
Okay, so you started off doing it down by your snowstorms, and now you make it sound like we want to go there. Because where we live in the Fens in England, which is flat. It is just flat land.
Yeah, it's called as flat as a witch's tit. That's what they say around here.
There's just nothing to see around here. But circling back to you and your escapades, whereabouts in Europe? You've been back to Poland.
Yeah, so I've been to Austria, Germany, made a pit stop in France, but my wife currently is begging me to buy a ticket and go to London. She's never been to London. I've never been to London. I did check my bank account. I don't think it's feasible given the prices because everyone keeps telling me London is not cheap.
No, London is not cheap.
No, it can be cheap, but yeah, the touristy parts they rip your eyeballs out. Have you ever thought about Northampton? Have you heard of Northampton?
I've heard of it, but it never became a
don't
destination.
ever go.
Yeah,
don't ever go to Northampton.
I had a roommate one summer in New York. He was from Leeds, and very distinctive dialect.
Yeah. But when you say Leeds, you have to say Leeds. Like that.
Oh, yeah. He said that, and huge football fan.
Yeah.
And I think they were demoted that year. This is a long time ago, and he was complaining about that.
What we're going to do, listener, the reason Rafal is joining us is because me and Neil are going to sit back, drink a cup of tea, smoke a cigar, and let Rafal just take over. So, Rafal, if you don't mind introducing us to your story, and then we'll go from there.
All right. So around the age of 9, I received a visa to come to the United States. I was living in Poland, in a communist country at the time. This is 1989. So the economy was bleak. My mom was already in the States, and she sent out a visa. And I went to the embassy, and I did get, it wasn't even a permit. It was a permanent visa. And I came to the United States, and my mom was already here, and she married a gentleman, also Polish, but he was a lot older. I think he was 25 years older than her. So when I arrived to the United States for the very first time, I met my stepdad for the very first time at the age of 9, 10. And he became my dad. And it was kind of odd right off the bat because he was so much older. He was 25 years older than my mom. So looking back at it, I'm not saying that it was an arranged marriage, but there was a reason why my mom got married to this gentleman.
There was a convenience there, rather than...
Yes, and a comfort level too. He was financially stable. So looking back at it, I do not blame her at all. And first of all, I'm so glad she picked that gentleman. So
did you speak English when you arrived at 9 years
not
old?
a lick of English. Not a lick of English. I think I might have known 2 words. Thank you. And that's about it. And then I got a funny story. So when I came to the United States that very first day, August 25th, 1989, I was at JFK and I was going through immigration. And there's a lot of people you have to go through, especially now. Before, I think it was just 1 or 2 TSA agents or immigration agents. And there was a gentleman. This is the first time I ever saw an Asian person in real life. Because remember, I was growing up in a communist country. There's no such thing as diversity in a communist country. And this is the first time I saw an Asian person, and he's asking me something in English, and I don't understand a word he's saying. He got frustrated, and he took out a translation book, and he goes, yeah, he's pointing to a paper, and he says, Imia, Imia. Imia means name in Polish. So I thought, oh, wait, you want me to sign something, put my name on the piece of paper. So that was my first experience as someone who never spoke a lick of English. So that was quite interesting. Then I met my dad once I crossed to the other side of the building, of the airport. And he became my stepdad. Little by little, we were talking to each other, and he was a great dad. And he started peeling the layers as far as who he was and where he came from. And initially, there was like a no-fly zone in regards to World War II because he was in a labor camp as a Polish soldier or Polish citizen in a Nazi camp. So that was kind of like a no-fly zone initially. We didn't talk about it, but I think he was protecting me because I was only 10. And I'll never forget, about like 2 or 3 years in, we were watching the movie, about 3 years in, Schindler's List, because it just came out.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying, wow, it's like a PG rated movie. They left a lot of things out. And that's how the conversations start coming up in regards to that era.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of fascinating. He said, this movie is kind of like for kids. And I didn't want to pry and ask too many questions, but little by little, he did open up about how difficult it was. And you can only imagine.
Are we going to be ruining your story or jumping ahead if we ask whereabouts he was incarcerated?
All right, so he was in the western side of Poland. So he was 15 when World War II started. So he wasn't like 5 or 10. He was, coming to adulthood. And he told me first night the Nazis came in because it was 1939, and they told everyone to clear out in 2 minutes the house. And they took his dad aside into the woods, and that was the last time he saw his dad. I think they executed him. And so it was just him and his siblings, and they separated them. But at the time, he was young and sturdy, 15-year-old, so they kept him for the labor. So for the next 4 years, 3 or 4 years, he dug ditches for the Germans. And little by little, he told me some stories, and they're not pleasant. He lost 2 of his siblings after the war, actually. They made it through the war, and they perished right after the war because of starvation. So war ends. It is bleak in Eastern Europe. He gets on the first boat to the United States in 1951 and travels about 23 days, he said, 2 to 3 weeks. And he ended up on Ellis Island and trekked his way all over the United States Eastern Seaboard. And he picked up any job he could find, couldn't speak English. He was a truck driver. He worked on a farm for like this French guy. He said it was bleak the first few years. He never got the proper education as far as the language is concerned. He learned words. So it's kind of like a musician who doesn't know keys, but they know how to play a keyboard or piano. Yeah. Same thing. He barely wrote, even later in life, he barely wrote, didn't really know how to read, but he could speak. He could definitely speak English.
You should identify with that, Neil.
Oh my God.
That's what it's like, mate. It's what it's like, Rafal. It's all the time.
Yeah.
But I have other talents.
Yeah? You keep them hidden.
It's for me to know, not for you to find out, isn't it?
How did your stepdad get from Poland to the USA financially? I know on a boat, but how did he afford his passage?
That he never told me. I assumed that someone gave him some cash or he snuck into a boat. It was really that basic. Remember, this is 1951 and a boat. We're not talking about airport security. I think you can sneak an extra body in there.
Yeah, talking to immigration. What's to do with you how he got there, is it? He did it. Well done for him.
We did an episode about a gentleman called Fred Kroll who invented Hungry Hippos, and his family came over from Estonia to America in the late 1800s, I want to say, early 20th century. I did just say it, didn't I? Early 20th century, and they got a passage in steerage, which was like a single room shared with another family, no food. The beds were just a couple of bunk beds for however many people were in that room.
Yes, it's similar to staying in the hotel in Northampton.
Well, I'm picturing he's not going to be in luxury. He's not going to be sitting there sipping champagne on his way over. That was going to be a tough journey.
It was. He told me that, everyone had to hold on to their food or anything because once it disappeared, you never knew who got your bread or your clothes or your luggage because, there's theft on that boat. So you had to keep to yourself and keep everything close to your vest.
It's like having dinner around Steve's house.
Yeah, that's your wallet you need to keep hold of. But all that just to escape Poland and communism and the Russians, I suppose, they took Poland, didn't they?
Yeah, so listeners who are familiar with history will understand the next statement that Poland really suffered after the war as well. Like I said before, two of his siblings, and I found this out during his funeral and wake, actually, recently when he passed away 2 years ago. One of his cousins said, by the way, he has 4 total siblings. And I said, no, I've only heard of 2. He says, well, the other 2 perished right after the war because there was just no food. It was starvation. And my dad, I remember sometimes he said that in the United States, I remember when people are dying of starvation, now people die of obesity. He made a joke on that.
Yeah.
And he said, I could never believe 60 years ago that we would have this obesity problem where people were dying on the street of starvation after the war and during the war.
See, from our point of view, in the West and in England, you can't put yourself in that position because we've never had that position.
Just fight for every mouthful, yeah. It
was so tough that he never went back. He left in 1951, never went back to Poland. He said, I've seen enough. In his mind, the country never changed. So he never went to see his siblings, family members. He said, I've had enough. What he saw there for the 5 years during the war and the additional 5 years afterwards, I can only imagine. He told me some stories. He had scars to prove where he was, and his attorney later on, when he was in the United States, fought for him where he got a retribution check from the Germans. Every month he got a check because he was able to prove that he was a prisoner during World War II. So all the way till the last month of his death, he was getting a check from Deutsche Bank in Germany.
Wow.
Really?
Hello, Neil. You still there?
Hello. I'm still there, yeah. I'm just thinking about getting a retribution check of in relations in Northampton.
Good idea. We could try that. Neil. Hello, Neil. Are you ready
Stephen.
for this?
Yes, please.
I've been to Poland.
Oh, clang. Here we go. Name drop.
And I've been to Austria.
Here we go. Everywhere has been. If someone mentions something, I've been there. Has he told you, Rafal, he's been to Australia? I'm surprised he hasn't. How long have you been talking? 5 minutes?
We haven't been to Australia. We haven't visited Australia in this conversation.
Oh, no, it doesn't have to be in this conversation, Steve. You just tell everyone. You stop strangers in the street and say, you've been to Australia? I have.
I've been to Poland and I've been to Krakow. Krakow. Is that said right, or Krakow, however you say it?
English version is Krakow and Polish is Kraków.
Kraków. Oh, I like that better.
I went to the Schindler's factory and Auschwitz and around there. And this was probably coming on 10 years ago now, and I still say to people that everyone should have to go to Auschwitz because it really, really brings it home, and it really leaves you thinking, we cannot let this happen again. This cannot happen again. It is a haunting place.
I don't have a desire to go, but I will take my daughter when she's older. It will be hard for me, but one of my friend's grandma went there when it first opened up, and I think this was mid 1950s. And she said that was the worst mistake I ever made because you could still smell. The smell wasn't gone yet.
Yeah.
This was still like prevalent in the air, and it was so difficult and to digest, and it was just unbearable. She
I know
said
something different, but I'm going to name drop now. But I was in New York the year before 9/11, and then I went back in the April after 9/11, and you can still smell the fuel. You still smell the smell of the fuel.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
I've been there.
Yeah, there you go. Told you.
I've been to New York. Anyway, Rafal, carry on with your story, please, and ignore Neil.
I'll try. So as I'm going through the 90s and 2000s with my dad, he's raising me properly, and I'm not an easy kid to raise. And like I said before, being a stepdad is the most thankless job in the world because all I could do is say to him, give him a comment, "You're not my real dad," or something like that. But it never came to that. He raised me properly, and he gave me great advice, and actually just through his work ethic, I learned a lot, and I also learned what not to do. But he shared stories as far as growing up in Poland and then struggling here in the United States. But one thing that happened to him is he got lucky and got a job as a machinist, and so it required some labor, but the language barrier wasn't as significant in that line of work. As long as he went in, put some hard labor, he got paid, and then he met his first wife, and they were married, never had kids. And I think she was Lithuanian, and she passed away. So that's how when he was grieving for her when she died, he met my mom. And so in a span of 2 years, he lost his wife and then met my mom, and that's how it all started. And he told me, like I said before, he told me very interesting stories about his upbringing. One of the biggest ones I'm going to include is he said, I had, as a kid in Poland, this is, 1920s, I had the worst tooth pain and toothache in the world. He says I couldn't fall asleep. And my dad, at the time, they were so poor. He said, all right, I'm going to have to figure this out, send you to a dentist. Well, a dentist in 1920s probably meant, 2 glasses of vodka, and they pull it out. And he worked in the fields an extra like 2 days. His dad did, and gave him the money and said, all right, you go to the dentist and take care of this. Stuff like that. Obviously no indoor plumbing. I didn't know, but he was colorblind. And now it makes perfect sense. I swear to God, now it makes perfect sense because of the clothes he was wearing. I didn't want to say anything, but now I'm like, oh my God, that makes perfect sense. Because he always had like a tie that was off or a shirt that didn't match properly. And I thought, he was just being quirky.
Steve, are you colorblind?
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, for the listener at home, I'm not actually wearing anything. Take your eyes off my nipples, Neil, please.
Sorry.
But just one more thing about my dad. He was always optimistic. Like whatever was going on in the world, especially in the United States, he said, I've seen it worse. Trust me. We'll get through this. Like, 9/11, he mentioned, he's like, we'll get through this. Anytime someone is screaming or yelling about end of the world or this country is doomed, he's like, oh, I've seen doomed. Let's pull back a little bit here. And so he was very optimistic. What he went through and still being optimistic, that means a lot.
That's a massive characteristic, that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I found fascinating is he was never mad at the Germans. Nazis, yes. Germans, no. So for example, if he went to the doctor and the doctor was German, like whatever. He never held that anger towards that country. He never had an issue with the German. With Soviets, that's different. Not Russians, Soviets. Oh my God, he did not like Soviets.
That's interesting because, again, clang, as Neil would say, but when we were there over in Poland, we got a taxi from Krakow,
yeah,
into Auschwitz, and the guy who was driving us, he was really good, and he spoke really good English, and he'd been in England as a student, and we were talking, asking questions. How do you feel about the Germans visiting now? And he said, oh, they're all really apologetic. So even people who were never even, their parents weren't even born, when this was going on, are really apologetic. But the ones he didn't like were the Soviets, the Russians. He said the way they treated people when they came into Poland. So, yeah, it's interesting to hear that first-hand experience.
There's a dark decade after the war, and it involved the Soviets. I remember, since I work in media, I was doing a documentary, and there was a cutaway shot I had to film, and I was wearing one of those Soviets hats, you know, the one that with the flaps over the ears, black, and it had the Soviet red star. And that was just a prop for a cutaway shot. And my dad saw it and he lost it. He's like, get rid of it, burn it. I don't want to see it here. So Soviets had an impact on him. And, you know, there's a saying that when the Nazis came through the door, you begged for mercy. But when the Soviets came through the door, you begged for the bullet. And he said that was so true. He says the way that they treated you and especially women from that era will tell you there's a lot of Soviet babies in Poland and in Germany as well. Because of that.
What was the distance in years between your dad leaving Poland to that incident with the hat when he said burn it?
So he came in 1951, and this was, I want to say, around 2010.
Well, so
60 years.
That kind of resentment.
It burnt into him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, there was something, and he never really dove deep into why.
There's certain things you see and you can't unsee.
Right, exactly. I think you are correct, Steve.
So it haunted your dad, really.
A bit like that T-shirt you're wearing, Steve.
Although it's glaring white, that is actually my torso. So thanks for keep referring to it. So your dad then, he became a...
like a machinist in a factory.
I was listening, Steve. He said machinist.
And he's settling in. He said machinist. So how did your dad and mum actually meet?
Oh, interesting story. So my mom came here to the United States in, I want to say, 1985. And she left me with my aunt and uncle. And she says, I'll be back in a year or two. As soon as I make enough money to buy an apartment and a car back in Poland, have enough money, I'll come back and we'll purchase a condo or an apartment and a car. And then we'll start all over again. Well, she bumped into my dad because one time he had to give her a ride to her job because a friend of a friend of a friend said, hey, I know this guy. He's retired because he was already like towards the end. I think he was retired. He can give you a ride to the bakery. So he did that once, did a second time. And my mom said by the third time, he was already rocking the cologne. He had a nice shirt on. He had a tie. So even though the trip was like less than 5 minutes from his house to the bakery, he was putting his game on. And my mom's honest; she's old, stubborn Polak, and she said initially I did not find him attractive. I did not want to deal with him, but it just grew on me. And then within 3 years they got married, and he said, "Well, why don't we just bring your son here? And what will be easier is if there's a process in the 80s you can pull this off. I'll adopt him." And because of that phase, it's a lot easier to bring someone over to the United States. I don't think that exists anymore, but technically I was kind of like adopted because that was the fastest way to become a resident and then a citizen in the United States.
I've got this picture now of your dad in the car with your mum on the third trip, like a bright red shirt on and a lime green tie, a yellow jacket, really color clashing.
Right, exactly, because he was colorblind. So maybe another reason that she did not find it attractive because he was probably rocking like a pink shirt and green pants.
Yeah. But he was a bit of a mover, though, by the sounds of it.
Yes, he was. He was well known in the community, especially with his first wife, and everyone had a soft spot for him because they were kind of like a great couple, and she passed away the year that she retired. So like she was 64, 65, she retired and passed away a year later of cancer.
Sorry to hear that. So what was life like then? You said you were 9?
Yep.
And you arrived in the States and you met your mum who you hadn't seen for
4 years.
4 years. So that must have been an emotional thing to begin with as well. And then there's this man, this older man in tow. So what was that like initially?
It was tough because, he's kind of a stranger, but the title is there, stepdad or dad, but he's a stranger. I mean, we had to start from scratch and he never had kids in his life. And looking back at it, you could tell the way he raised me, he was very cautious. Like, I have a feeling if he had a daughter or a son prior, he would treat me differently. He was very cautious when it came to my upbringing. He protected me. And I'll give you a story. Like, this is where I gain a lot of respect for him. I think it was in grade school. I was getting bullied, 7th or 8th grade. So I was around 13 years old. And I told my parents, like, yeah, there's this kid that's just picking on me. And my mom does the typical, well, go to see the principal or the administration and they'll handle it. And my dad's, kind of nodding, say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then my mom leaves to go to the kitchen. I'll never forget this. And my dad waits for her to leave and looks at me and points to an area in my stomach. And he says, kid, if he ever comes at you, punch him right there. He's going to be gasping for air, and then just walk away. He showed me where to punch him. So he'll drop. It was almost like this MMA move, just punch him right there. You'll be gasping for air, and then you just walk away. It was my first initial experience because I think I was already in the country for 3 years, and here's this guy telling me how to punch someone out, and I was like, all right, this can work. And then another thing is, for some reason he was a Chevy guy, the car brand Chevrolet.
Yeah.
He had a 64 Impala, which if he kept it, it would have been worth
a lot of money,
hundreds of thousands of dollars. He had a red cherry 64 Impala, and every 5 years, his first wife said, "We have to change cars." They were never big into keeping cars, and she was an engineer, and they were quite well off. So every 5 years, they would get a new Chevy. And I remember when I turned 16 or 17, he kind of told me, if you get another car, you have to pay for it. But if it's a Chevy, I'll pay for it. So, so he bought me so he bought me a brand new Chevy when I think it wasn't at 16 when I turned 16, but more like at 18 when I went to college. He just got me a Chevrolet. And I was like, all right, brand new car. I'll take it.
Nice.
It sounds like, although he was a lot older than your mum and never had kids before, and he'd been through all that in his life, it sounds like he was a kind man.
Very kind, very kind. So you would think that given his age and his upbringing, he would be bitter. No, opposite. He was an optimist. He was all about helping people out. If he saw what's going on right now, he would be like, "Oh, this is so sad." He was very progressive, but also for some reason he was very fiscally conservative. So that's how he gained his wealth. But he was very progressive. Like, I remember, if you know anything about Cape Cod, right at the tip of where I live is a small town called Provincetown or P-Town. It is the east version of San Francisco. A lot of the gay community. It's just pretty much, that's the bulk of the population. The LGBT population is there.
Yeah.
He would go there in the 80s and he's like, all right, they're having a good time. They're nice to me. They never bother me. And I love coming here.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do about gender, sexuality. He just enjoyed a good time. He enjoyed a good shot of vodka or beer, a whiskey too. And he loved having a good time. He was also very Catholic, which is, kind of like weird. He would go to this gay town and have a good time. And I'll never forget, he took my mom for the first time to that town. And she also is very strict Catholic, and coming from a communist Polish country, she didn't understand the whole gay thing. She really didn't. And so they're walking around during the summertime. It's a beautiful day. The main street is flooded with people, and she drops her wallet. And she tries to pick it up, and someone pinches her butt. And she looks around, and there's 3 women giggling. And she's like, she's asking my dad, where did you bring me? And then he had to explain to her, oh yeah, this town, is a little bit different.
Was there, in the 1980s particularly, was there a stigma around doing that sort of thing with AIDS that was thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So it was huge. The stigma was huge around here. One of the famous chefs, Anthony Bourdain, I think he passed away. He worked in Provincetown for a long time, and one of my coworkers worked with him in the kitchen. And she had some interesting stories about that guy. Great guy. Loved his drugs though. Oh my God, she said. You know, everything from black tack, tar, heroin to weed. This guy would partake. He loved them drugs back in the day. But yeah, that town, there was a stigma in the 80s, early 90s. It has disappeared now. It has disappeared. It's a
Good.
very expensive town.
Is
But
it?
again, your dad, as a Catholic, like you've described, and you said he was quite liberal in his thinking and forward thinking, he must have been, if he was going there and having a good time with us.
Absolutely, yeah.
When there was a stigma attached to it because of the AIDS and things
Right.
like that.
Yeah, he was progressive in that sense, and
Yeah.
he also kind of said, you know, a bunch of gay dudes. There's less competition for me. So
There's the optimism.
there's the optimism right there.
He sounds like a hell of a chap. So,
Yeah.
what are your latter memories of your dad?
So he took a sharp turn for the worst when he turned 90. Like up to 90, he would play soccer with me. Like we would have a good time. He was very strong. And I remember when I first met him, I think the first month he came out of the shower and he had his pants on, but it was putting a shirt on. I think he still had a six pack at 60.
Wow.
I struggle with my weight all the time. And
Same
my wife always makes fun of me. She's like, you did not get the genes. Like you eat a grape and you're fat. So
Yeah, I walk past someone eating a chocolate bar and put the weight on for them. I do.
True.
Whereas I've got the perfect physique, so I'm not going to say anymore.
I will leave it there then.
Don't have the six pack, got the keg. Same thing.
That's it. Yeah, all over
That's
that.
it.
So he's quite an active man then as well, right up until old age.
Yeah, very active, very active. One gory thing that happened towards the end of his life is my wife gave birth. So I know he was a stepdad, but he saw his grandchild, and
That's nice.
and that meant a lot to him. He passed away 2 years ago when she was 5. So unfortunately, I have a feeling that my daughter won't really remember him because at 5, there's only so much you're going to remember. But the fact that he met her and he played with her, that meant a lot to him. I do recall a couple of times towards the end, he was crying when he was playing with her because I think he knew that the end was near.
Similar to the story with my dad and my son. My son was 5 when my dad passed away, and he sort of remembers him, but
Bits and pieces.
We're assuming he lived near you in Cape Cod, did he? Or did he live somewhere else?
There's a state called Connecticut, and that's where we lived, which is about 3 hours from this place. He was vibrant in the community with his first wife, but then once I came along, and I was told this, that, you know, he kind of put all his effort into raising me. But, you know, he would drive around for the basketball games, for the soccer games. He would drive me around because he loved doing that. And we watch sports together. He taught me about American sports, but we always watched a good soccer game or football every Sunday. Every Sunday back in the 90s, the only channel you could get soccer was the Spanish channel. And they had a contract, I want to say, with Italy. I remember we were watching those games all the time because they were coming in live at 10 a.m. in the morning, or as soon as we got back from church on Sundays, we would always watch the game.
Yeah, the game one. Nice.
And you say your dad never went back
No.
to
He had
Poland.
no desire. You would
But
give
did
him
he-
$1 million, he would never go back.
Did he go back to Europe at all?
No, never. He
Never
never got
even.
on a plane. In his life, he never flew on a plane.
Did he travel the States?
Yes, but he was a truck driver too for a long time. So, you know, he went as far as, I think, let's say Ohio. So if you look at the map, Boston to Ohio is a nice trek. So he visited all the states in between. So he was well versed in geography and all those things.
It's occurred to me that during the course of this conversation, we don't know your stepdad's or your dad's name.
It's Walter. So he went by Walter, but his real name was Władysław, which is like Vladimir, similar to that.
Yeah.
Władysław, but he went by Walter. So Walter was my stepdad, and he became my dad. He passed away 2 years ago at 98. And,
Wow.
98. Wow.
98. He was striving for 100, but towards the end, I said he took a turn at 90. By 95, he was saying, the end is near. I'm on the back 9 here. I have a feeling he kind of kept on because of my marriage, and my wife was pregnant, and he wanted to see a grandchild.
Yeah.
Do you know what I think? I've got a theory that it's the people who are full of life, full of enjoyment, natural optimists are the ones that tend to live into the grand old ages. Not all of them. It's not like everybody will, but it tends to be that sort of person.
Yeah, and that's why I'm the same way now. I'm very optimistic. There's a saying, "Don't regret getting old. It's a privilege denied to many." And he enjoyed his life, and what he went through, you would think he would be bitter. Hell no. He kept on plugging, and he always saw the good in people, and was very optimistic. And he raised me. It could have been easy for him to say, "Well, yeah, just go away," or something like that. He never said that. He always wanted to do stuff. He wanted to play soccer. He wanted to watch a football game.
So was it you who was saying go away? Just leave me alone.
You still wanted to join
He's
in.
full of life.
Ah, that's good.
Just to put it in context for our listener, I'm trying to work out the years, and I think it might be a bit short, but a similar kind of lifespan to our late Queen.
Exactly. It's funny because he doesn't know his real birthday. Someone just randomly put 1925 August 2nd on the birth certificate, but he believes that he was born earlier because he obviously there was no hospital. This was like, back of the barn. Where he was born. So he could have been actually maybe like closer to 99 than 98. But 1925 he was born.
Do you think his teenage experiences with the Germans helped? Is help the right word? But gave him that optimism, that drive for life. Because, like you said earlier in the conversation, I've seen hell. I've seen what that's like. This is not that. This is better than that. Did that help drive that in him?
Yeah, exactly. I think you're dead on, Steve. That's one of the reasons he became such an optimist, because he saw the worst. He saw the worst for 4 to 5 years, or actually even more than that. And then once he came to the United States, he didn't have to look over his shoulder. It took a little bit, he told me, but he saw all the goodness in this country, for example. But, there was no camps. There were no military walking into your house and telling you to leave. He was anti-war too. I remember he was not too fond of the Afghanistan war and Iraq war. Obviously, I asked him straight up about what he thinks about the Russian-Ukrainian. You can imagine how he feels about the Russians.
Yeah. You've got one last memory or one last description or whatever to leave the listener with about Walter. What would you want to say or leave them with?
A few, actually. I know you asked for one, but I'll just say...
Yeah, go
on. He was trying to teach me American football. So how to throw a spiral. As a quarterback, you throw a spiral. And he's throwing it to me kind of softly. But the spiral's there, but it's kind of soft. And then I asked him, I'm like, no, give me everything you got. And at 60, oh my God, I had the biggest welt right here. I caught it in my chest. And for like a whole week, I had a bruise like no other on my chest. And I think I was like 11 or 12 years old. And it hurt so bad. So he apologized. Obviously, he kept apologizing. But I'm like, no, I see what you got there. I'll try to work my way up to that. So I just remember how strong he was. He was a short guy. He was only like 5'5". And man, he could throw a spiral. And remember I said he got out of the shower and he already had his pants on, but he was putting his shirt on and he still had like a six pack. Yeah. And I totally get it now. The guy had
It didn't work out or anything. It was just natural.
Never worked out in his life. I think what started was doing those ditches for the Nazis, because he was in charge of digging like 6-foot ditches and bunkers. I mean, he had some guns on him.
He was doing physical jobs as well, though, wasn't he? In trucking. I know a lot of it is driving, but you got to unload and load.
Right, and exactly. That and the mechanist. He was always active, and then the optimism aspect. I'm going to go back to that. He just was always optimistic. If something bad happened, he said, "Well, we'll take care of it," and he knew how to take care of it. He was a people's person.
He had the worst childhood you could possibly imagine, up into his late whatever, but he didn't let it go. No, I'd never forget it, but it flipped his life around completely and radiated that out to everybody else. That his optimism and just kindness and everything else has come out of him. I think it's amazing. Amazing.
You would think that somehow he's going to hold a grudge, or no, he didn't. He didn't.
That takes a hell of a character to do that.
Yep, he didn't. He just kept on going.
So thanks, Rafal. To be honest, that was an honour, I think, to hear that story about Walter and his life's journey and how it all worked out for him despite the most horrendous teen years. So we'd like to say, hello, Neil.
Hello, Stephen.
And what are your thoughts there, please, Neil?
Well, it just makes you appreciate what you've got and the upbringing that we've had and things in life. Yeah, absolutely. Because listening to things like that is just, you just can't, because I've never witnessed it, you can't fully comprehend what Walter went through. But what a man to come through that.
What a life. What a man.
And to turn it around. Hats off to the man. That's what I'm going to say.
And do you think he's an optimist because despite everything, he never actually was made to go to Northampton?
I think if he went there, then it might have been a different story.
Yeah.
I think there would be some bitterness there.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to wish that on anybody, would you?
No, absolutely not.
But we thank Rafal for that story because that was our first ever guest on
Honourable Mention.
And the subject of today's
Honourable Mentions
was Walter, stepdad to our new friend and yours, Rafal. And we'll be back again next week with a new
Honourable Mention,
which of course will be interesting, but not as interesting as that, I'd like to say. That was a real first-hand, real life of somebody who was an everyday person who lived an extraordinary life, and what an unsung hero.
Yes, absolutely. To not spread bitterness and to spread kindness like that is,
Spread a little happiness as you go by.
Yes.
Which is what Walter did. What a man. And thank you, Rafal, for joining us. We really, really do appreciate that, all the way from the United States in Cape Cod.
Yes, and not the chip shop.
Not the chip shop, but the place out there in America. So, thank you, listener. Join us again next week, and we will see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Sounded enthusiastic.
Thank you for listening to Honorable Mentions. Please like, share, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. You can contact Steve and Neil directly at honorablementionspod@gmail.com or on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and now YouTube as well. Honorable Mentions is usually researched by Stephen Webb and is an Uncover Brothers production. The theme is written and performed by Pepe and the Bandits. Please give them a listen whenever you stream your music.
Perfect. That'll do, lovely.